EA has finally released something competent. Of course, we shouldn't give them that much credit. They've been owning Star Wars for what, 4 or 5 years now? And all we've gotten are 2 loot box filled sorry excuses of the games that came before it. There's been a lot of recent hype for Star Wars. We have the new movie on the horizon and the Mandalorian TV show, which we might talk about, I don't know. This video will be more like an impressions video, and I'll probably talk about the Witcher Netflix show due to being a fan of the books, but I digress. I was not excited about this game at all, especially with EA's name on it. Star Wars has kind of been a dying franchise for me, especially after The Last Jedi, but with this and The Mandalorian, we seem to have a brighter future. If you are watching this, you might be on the fence, but really it's just okay. If you are on the fence, you can probably wait. If you are bored and you want something to do, then go for it. Just don't expect anything groundbreaking. You play as a boy named Cal after the Clone Wars. Some guy made a list of leftover Jedis, which is a perfect thing for the Empire to obtain, but it also opens the door for the future of Star Wars. They kind of wrote themselves in a hole, making the Jedis essentially Force nuns who don't procreate, so if this game is canon, then it opens the door to a bit more. I was kind of hoping this game would be awful. I didn't want to have to choose between this and Pokemon Shield, but then the reviews started rolling in and I ended up just getting both. And Jedi Fallen Order ain't so bad. Like Outer Worlds, this game is another clone of previous games. It's a child born of Dark Souls and Tomb Raider. I'm actually a huge Tomb Raider fan. I think the iterations of Tomb Raider have been damn fine. However, when this game has its Tomb Raider moments, it kind of feels clunky and awful. The second half I'm not too crazy about either, the Dark Souls side. I personally don't find harsh consequences for dying fun. And as an adult, the main reasons why I play games is to fucking relax. Like an idiot, I chose the hardest difficulty, and I have to say it might be funner to play it on normal. There's a lot of salt in my wounds. This game knows how to unleash my Sith anger. But let's talk about the good stuff. It's progression. It knows how to reward the player as he progresses. While I was playing, I got flashbacks of Assassin's Creed Origins and Odyssey. Those games are just awful. They're really, really awful. They're both games that ape Dark Souls, but they botch its progression. Players were forced to mindlessly grind in order to get to the next area, and we kept constantly finding new items to help us move forward. But with this game, it keeps things a bit more simple and streamlined and less of a hassle. You don't have to constantly swap weapons and armor every 2 seconds, and it makes you feel like you need to get better with your saber because it's the only thing you have. Damage doesn't get stronger through experience, at least up to where I'm currently at with the game. By removing stats on the weapons, the developer is really conveying the idea of your abilities getting better rather than luck finding a new item. It's something I notice and it's something I appreciate. It kind of takes me back to the good old days, which seems like an obvious ploy to trick us, EA. We're still watching you, EA. The game gives you cosmetics at a steady rate, and due to playing it on a harder difficulty, I had more reason to explore and try to get as much experience as I can. Having as many abilities as possible definitely helps. It's a tightly built experience with a few annoying bugs, which is high praise for an EA game. It also has some quality of life additions to its map. Throughout the game, you will notice there are a lot of areas that are closed off, and if it's red on your map, it's impossible to get there. However, later in the game, once you get the ability that allows access, it becomes green, indicating its availability. It's a small detail, but very convenient for exploration. This game also does a great job making you feel like a badass. Unless you're playing on the hardest difficulty, then you feel like a scared little punk. Which is honestly how it should be in my opinion. Star Wars fans tend to really just like when something looks cool. It's the reason why Boba Fett is so popular, even though all he does is just get owned and die. It's also why Mandalorian is popular, even though it's just a guy walking around for 30 minutes. It just looks cool and it has a good atmosphere. And there's nothing really wrong with that, don't get mad at me. Playing it on an easier difficulty gives that experience that Star Wars fans want, being a badass with a lightsaber. However, playing it on a harder difficulty allows you to utilize the game's design a bit more. With the game being difficult, it matches the theme of a small Jedi Padawan trying to escape the powerful Sith-controlled Empire. When you run into one of their badasses, it's like, oh, fuck! It's genuinely scary. Although I don't know if I can say that it's funner on a harder difficulty. So it's a good balance between the two. One difficulty for more hardcore players and the other one for the fans of the franchise. The animations are fantastic and we can really marvel at the graphics, although the Wookiees look like shit. What is that? Look at his legs.
I didn't realize it would be this bad.
I don't know what it is. I think it's something with the hair and the lighting. Even the main character's ginger colored hair can look pretty awkward. My favorite character is that captain, mostly due to his voice and animation.
Hey, wake up. Can we talk?
What?
Can we talk? I don't know what's going on between you and her, I mean, I figure it's some kind of Jedi thing, but I don't think this is the right time for
It's
it.
not any of your business.
I think it's my business. And we're all in this together, aren't we?
He definitely fits the franchise and is very likable. The maps are set up exactly like Tomb Raider. As you go through the game, you're able to jump between different planets, and each planet has a decent sized map. However, there are no fast travel points, so sometimes you'll be out in the middle of nowhere and have to fight your way back to your spaceship, which can be a huge hassle. And that's where the Dark Souls aspect comes in. Again, I don't like Dark Souls. In between sections of the area, you will find what's essentially campfires from Dark Souls. Whenever you use it to heal yourself, the monsters in the area respawn, so with no fast travel points, there are times where you are having to fight the same people again. I know that Dark Souls has a hardcore following, but I just don't like to have to essentially prove myself on the same enemies more than once. Fighting the same enemies gets very stale for me. And with no fast travel, get ready to have to do that shit a lot. It's hard for me to talk about its difficulty. Everything I say could be due to playing it on its hardest difficulty, so I can't speak for the easier ones. I'm finding it extremely frustrating. It's decent and cool when it's 1v1, but as soon as 4 other people show up, especially those fucking animals, I want to break something. When you're fighting more than one person, it's really shitty. What I found funny is Cal's voice. Whenever you're trying to get a health stem from BD1, it takes like 5 hours for him to throw it at you, so there are many times when Cal will shamelessly scream help before dying.
Help, please.
And I know I keep mentioning Tomb Raider, and I have to say that it's one of the worst aspects of Fallen Order. It really feels like a company that isn't familiar with the Uncharted Tomb Raider design, so there are many situations where Cal won't make that jump or go down that rope or climb that thing, grab that edge. Usually in Tomb Raider you can easily tell when it's something you can do. You have confidence in Lara Croft and her abilities to Nathan Drake the shit out of her surroundings. But in this game, fuck, he will fail doing simple shit. Absolutely embarrassing shit. His run also doesn't feel as fast or as powerful as Laura's. It almost feels like he's stuck to the ground, Andromeda style. It's a shame because that's probably my favorite part of the game, even though it's one of the worst. Exploring these awesome locations and sightseeing these beautiful planets is really fun for me. But yeah, there are a lot of things that this game does right. I'm having fun as I'm going through it, and that's really all I ask for. When you have a game like this that obviously wasn't built with the idea of loot boxes, you have a complete experience. And that's all we ask for in the end. The issue with things like loot boxes and microtransactions is that they are getting in the way of base design. Games today are being built around the idea of microtransactions. So we are left with scraps of games that aren't as enjoyable as they were before. Games also don't have to be frustratingly long to be worth the price. I would purchase something like Metro 2033 for full price because it's an enjoyable experience. You can beat BioShock in one day, and I think it's one of the greatest games to hit the shelves. So far, this game seems to be longer than any of those games I mentioned. It's kind of the length of Shadow of Tomb Raider, but due to its difficulty, it's a bit longer. The length is what you make of it due to almost every aspect being optional. You'll probably beat this game very, very quickly if you just do the main story. But overall, it's a solid game, and I'd give it 7 Bantha Fodders out of 10. Although like Tomb Raider, you can wait for it to get cheaper. You have to really like Tomb Raider and Dark Souls to buy it right now, in my opinion, but due to not being a fan of Dark Souls, I'm unsure of what those fans think of it. They could be sick of other games trying to copy their steez. With this and The Mandalorian, maybe we are seeing good things for the future of the Star Wars franchise. I love Red Letter Media and they're obviously my biggest inspirations, but I don't exactly agree with them saying that there's nothing to do with Star Wars. I think there's plenty to do with the universe, and we've seen it before. It's just, are the people who own it going to give it justice? Well, since I'm here, I might as well talk a little bit about The Mandalorian. The truth is, nothing has happened. I feel like we really need to give it a bit more time. I feel like Disney needs to give it a lot more time. 30 minutes just isn't long enough. Not long enough at all, especially when it's coming out once a week. It's almost, I can't even get excited for it because I know it's just 30 minutes. I don't really have a problem with the pace that they're going in, where it's just kind of like this atmospheric slow burn, but when it's just 30 minutes, god damn. I thought it was funny to see IG-11. That was probably, I think, the highlight of everything that we've seen so far. I kind of wish, to be honest, I might be the minority with this idea. I want the Mandalorian to be a bumbling fool, mostly because we can't see his face. It'd be funny if this show was about a Mandalorian that was really, really bad at being a bounty hunter. He just happened to be really, really lucky. Like at the beginning of the first episode, when he shoots the door and the door chops that guy in half, maybe he was actually aiming for the guy, but he's just so bad at shooting that he accidentally shot the door and it turned out to be a lot more violent than he wanted it to be. I would love that a lot, but I know the majority of Star Wars fans would probably hate it. I could just imagine a lot of funny things with a character like this where we can't see his face. Like have someone walk into the shower and then he still has his mask on or something. You know, it would be fun. It would be really, really fun. I'd really look forward to watching the episodes if that was the case, but it's not. They're taking a more serious approach, which is what Star Wars fans probably want. And I don't really have a problem with that either, as long as they make it good. Is it worth the Disney Plus subscription? Probably not yet. But if you're looking for something to watch, it's definitely worth checking out. I'd say that the quality alone is worth your time at least.